Namaste. Aloha, my name is Janapati Das, and we are going to be reading some more from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So this is our Bhagavad Gita as it is class again. So thank you. I offer my respects to you. Thank you for tuning in constantly, making your comments and liking. And please feel free to encourage others to subscribe to my channel so that these different videos can get out and the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita can be heard by all people. So I'd like to take this opportunity to offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, Jagat Guru Siddhaswarapananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, and pray for his mercy upon me. And of course to my dear grandfather, spiritual master, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, for my most humble obeisances and gratitude for bringing us this wonderful Bhagavad Gita, among many other things. We are going to chant as instructed by our spiritual masters. My dear Guru Dev Srila Prabhupada, he said that one who wants to know, please, our spiritual grandfather, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, one can feel his presence by chanting the names of Krishna. So this is what we're going to do. Swarupananda Paramamsa Namine Korakaruna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Haribo. Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Okay, so we are just going into chapter 5. We had read the first 6 texts of Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. And the question that Arjuna asked Krishna, and I'm just going to say this again because it's very important, it's very pivotal. Arjuna said, "Oh Krishna, first of all, you ask me to renounce work, and then again you recommend work with devotion. Now will you kindly tell me which of the two is more beneficial?" So we were going along and Krishna was explaining the different chapters, which we went through last time. And there became a thing that was confusing to Arjuna, whether or not if you renounce work, how will you be able to do devotional service? Because devotional service is some kind of work. And he said out of the two, renunciation of work and work in devotion are both good for liberation, but of the two, working in devotional service is better than renunciation of work. So, and then we came to this point of really understanding that acting in devotional service includes all true renunciation, because in attachment to Krishna, one is able to understand fully and truly that everything animate and inanimate is owned and controlled by God. So you're not really renouncing anything after all, but those things that you have desire and urges for, to, in the false pretense of thinking you're the body and the mind, those things are given up easier by the increased, or by them being applied in the service of God and not yourself. So we're reading from text 7. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijatma jitendriyaya Sava bhutatma bhutatma kurvanapi na libyate. Yoga yuktaha, engaged in devotional service. So these words yoga and yuktaha are interconnected. They come from the same word, and they were eventually the word to yoke came from these words. So yoke a horse, right? You connect. But so this is engaged in devotional service. So yoga is the process, and yukta is the actual experience of being engaged in this devotional service. Vishuddha Atma, a purified soul. Vijita Atma, self-controlled. So you can actually see that we actually have this word Atma, which is a word in Sanskrit that can be translated, refer to the body, the mind, but in its ultimate sense is having to do with the Vigraha, the spirit soul, the Jivatma, right? So we have these different Atmas: Vishuddha Atma, purified soul; Vijita Atma, self-controlled; Jita Indriyaha, right? Indriyaha, senses, having conquered the senses; Sarvabhuta Atma Bhuta Atma, compassionate to all living entities. There's that Atma again. So the spirit soul is, all these things are going on with the spirit soul when it is yoga yuktaha, and is engaged in the devotional service, right? So it's compassionate to all living beings. It's self-controlled. It's conquered the senses. It's purified by being engaged in the devotional service. And therefore, going back to this idea of, the renunciation, we're renouncing the concept that we own and control things, that are not, that they are ours to enjoy. So we have kurvam api, although engaged in work, never libyate, is entangled. So translation, text 7. One who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, and who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. So they're not entangled in the fruit of activities, because they are completely 100% connected. Yoga yuktaho, right? They are connected in devotional service to Krishna and everything that comes with that. It's like reconnecting our relationship. That's what the Bhagavad Gita is really about. This is reconnecting of our loving relationship. And that is in our best interest to be in that state, because when we're in illusion and when we're in what they term as the culture of nescience in the Sri Ishopanishad, the idea that everything is ours to own and control, to manipulate, and anybody who gets in our way, well, they're just in the way, So this is completely opposite than the culture of knowledge, which is this devotional service, right? Yoga yuktaha, engaging in devotional service. One who is on the path of liberation by Krishna consciousness is very dear to every living being, and every living being is dear to him. Truly, a soul like our spiritual master, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the great saints and spiritual masters of the past, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, so many people, Narada Muni, it's just, Rupa Goswami. I mean, all these great personalities are really the benedictions for humanity, because they are the pure representation of Krishna's mercy, being completely fixated on service to Krishna. Really is the most dear thing to the living entity. This is due to his Krishna consciousness. Such a person cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna, just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from the tree. He knows very well that by pouring water on the root of the tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches, or by supplying food to the stomach, the energy is automatically distributed throughout the body. It's a beautiful analogy, we try, so many people, politicians and leaders, so-called leaders of society, try to do different welfare work and whatnot that are at the best like a band-aid for the problems that are facing our world, but usually cause things to be worse off. I mean, you look at people who are had good intentions. They would say the path to hell is laid by good intentions. We have people like Karl Marx and Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler. They, in their mind, were thinking they were doing good things for society, good things for humanity. But because they were not connected to God, they were not connected to Krishna, they didn't know where they needed to apply their work. And it says here that, the devotee of Krishna, this person, this dear person, living entity, has given their life and cares so much about humanity because they see everything as Krishna's energy or Krishna's child, and so they want the best for those children. Sometimes you have to scold your children, because they're causing problems. It's like the child that puts their hand on reaching out to grab a knife or put their hand on a fire, and the mother says, "Stop!" And they go, "Why you were so mean to me?" And they start crying. They're just really trying to protect, these living entities from harming themselves all the time, putting themselves in situations where they're reincarnated all the time. Because one who works in Krishna consciousness is servant to all, he is very dear to everyone. And because everyone is satisfied by his work, he is pure in consciousness. Because he is pure in consciousness, his mind is completely controlled. And because his mind is controlled, his senses are also controlled. Because his mind is always fixed on Krishna, there is no chance of his being deviated from Krishna. Nor is there a chance that he will engage his senses in matter other than the service of the Lord. He does not like to hear anything except topics relating to Krishna. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna. He does not wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. Therefore, his senses are controlled. A man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. One may ask, why then was Arjuna offensive in battle to others? Wasn't he in Krishna consciousness? Arjuna was only superficially offensive because, as has already been explained in the second chapter, all the assembled persons on the battlefield would continue to live individually, as the soul cannot be slain. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So this is what Krishna is kind of laying out, that whether they fight in the battle or they don't fight in the battle, they're going to be, their bodies are going to die, but they will continue on. So spiritually, no one was killed in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only their dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who was personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. That's the sum of it. That's why Krishna said, fight for me in Krishna consciousness, in consciousness of me. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of work. So this is a great lesson for all of us. We action in Krishna consciousness. We can be the Arjuna, maybe not going out in the battlefield, but maybe going on the battlefield of the schools where we're teachers, or the battlefield of our business, or the things where we have challenges. We have to deal with different kinds of things, and we are doing these things for the service of our spiritual master in Krishna. Text 8 and 9. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tatvavit pasyan srivan slipyan jigoran ashnan gachan tvapan tvasan pralapan vrishchan grinan unmishan nimishan api Indriyan nidriyarteshu vartanta iti darayan. Na, never. Eva, certainly. Kinchit, anything. Karomi, do I, do. Iti, thus. Yukta, engaged in the divine consciousness. Manyeta, thinks. Tatva, vit. One who knows the truth. Pashyan, by seeing, Shrivan, by hearing, Sprishan, by touching, Dirgan, by smelling, Ashnan, by eating, Gachan, by going, Svapan, by dreaming, Shwasan, by breathing, Paralpan, by talking, Rishjan, by giving up, Krinan, by accepting, Unmishan, opening, Nimishan, closing, Api, in spite of, Indriyani, the senses, Indriyarteshu, in sense gratification. Vartante, let them be so engaged. Iti, thus, dalayan, considering. Translation. A person in the divine consciousness, although engaged in seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving about, sleeping, and breathing, always knows within himself that he actually does nothing at all, because while speaking, evacuating, receiving, opening, or closing his eyes, he always knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects, and that he is aloof from them. So, a very profound 2 verses. Because when you are in the realization that Aham Brahmasmi, I am spirit soul, I am not the material body, I am not my mind. Therefore, the things that go on in my body or the mind are external senses. They really have nothing to do with us observing this whole thing going on. And the person in divine consciousness understands that he's aloof from it, right? So part of the philosophy, the yoga that Kapila Dev instructed to Devahuti was called the when I just drew a blank. So, my mind, yes. All right, the Shanka, yes, the Shanka Yoga was part of it, describing 24 elements of the material consciousness, and some of those have to do with the senses that go on, the eating, the seeing, the tasting, the hearing, and these are things that happen on the material level, but we are perceiving it from as a jivama. but we are also aloof from it. So these things are just really going on a different level than what we are experiencing, than what the Jivatma is at. Purport: a person in Krishna consciousness is pure in his existence, and consequently he has nothing to do with any work which depends upon 5 immediate and remote causes: the doer, the work, the situation, the endeavor, and the fortune. Let me read those again. The doer, the work, the activity, the situation of the activity, the endeavor, our process of the activity, and fortune, what we get out of it, right? This is because he is engaged in the loving, transcendental service of Krishna. Although he appears to be acting with his body and senses, he is always conscious of his actual position, which is spiritual engagement. In material consciousness, the senses are engaged in sense gratification, but in Krishna consciousness, the senses are engaged in the satisfaction of Krishna's senses. Therefore, the Krishna conscious person is always free, even though he appears to be engaged in things of the senses. Activities such as seeing, hearing, speaking, evacuating, etc. are actions of the senses meant for work. And Krishna conscious person is never affected by the actions of the senses. He cannot perform any act except in the service of the Lord, because he knows that he is an eternal servant of the Lord. Okay, that's very profound. Text 10. Brahmani adhyaya karmani sangam tavaktva karalotiya libyate nasa papena padma patram ivambasha. Brahmani, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Adhyaha, resigning unto. Karmani, all works. Sangam, attachment. Tavaktva, Tiyaktva, giving up. Karoti, performs. Ya, who. Libyate, is affected. Na, never. Saha, he. Papena, by sin. Padma patram, lotus leaf. Iva, like. Ambasha, in the water. Translation: one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme God, is not affected by sinful actions, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Beautiful verse. So we can imagine the lotus flower. The lotus flower comes up. It's a very symbolic thing in the Vedic, because it comes up out of the muck, completely not affected by the mud, but even though it's in the mud, it comes up out of the water and opens above the water. So it's not affected by the mud or the water. So here it's saying that the person who does what he needs to do, Krishna is telling Arjuna, do what you need to do without the attachment of that, surrendering the results, the fruits of those activities, instead of eating them like the bird on the tree, offering them to God. Whatever comes out of this, I offer to you. I offer the activity, I offer the results. They're not affected, they will not be affected by the karmic reaction, the sinful reaction. They are untouched by the mud of everything that's going on around them. Here, Brahmani means in Krishna consciousness. The material world is a sum total manifestation of the 3 modes of material nature, technically called the pradhana. The Vedic hymns, so this is also referring again to Shankha Yoga. Pradhana is having to do in the 3 modes of material nature in the material world. The Vedic hymns, Sarvam etad Brahma, Tasmad etad Brahma, Nama Rupam Manam Jayate, and in the Bhagavad Gita, Mama Yonir Bahad Brahma, indicate that everything in the material world is the manifestation of Brahman. And although the effects are differently manifested, they are non-different from the cause. In the Ishopanishad, it is said that everything is related to the Supreme Brahman or Krishna, and thus everything belongs to him only. One who knows perfectly well that everything belongs to Krishna, and that he is the proprietor of everything, and that therefore everything is engaged in the service of the Lord, naturally has nothing to do with the results of his activities, whether virtuous or sinful. So, once again, when Arjuna was telling Krishna, or asking Krishna whether it was better to renounce, how could that be if you're renouncing your work and you're renouncing what you're doing and also at the same time actively engaging, Krishna explained it very beautifully that the renunciation by itself is a separate thing without the devotion to Krishna is good for certain things, but it has to be connected to really ultimately for the ultimate result to be it happens naturally in the service of Krishna, because as it said here, the Sri Ishopanishad, everything animate and inanimate is owned and controlled by God, and even the results, even the offerings that you make, the results of your activities, the things that you do, your strengths, your abilities, they're all owned and controlled by God. They're all there as an opportunity that Krishna gives us out of his unconditional mercy to come back to him by offering it in love to him. Wonderful. Even one's material body being a gift of the Lord for carrying out a particular type of action can be engaged in Krishna consciousness in many different ways. Krishna was asking Arjuna to use his body in the service also. He had to use his body. He had to shoot arrows really quickly. He had to jump off the chariots and fight with his swords and his weapons and, just use his mind to figure things out. And so our body can be used in cases of times of death where you have to leave your body. You can actually engage your body in service by leaving your body, by letting your body die without freaking out about it. As a yogi, the great yogis of the past, of the Vedas and of the Srimad Bhagavatam, they would leave their body at will. They were very, very surrendered. It is beyond contamination. Even one's body being a gift of the Lord for carrying out a particular type of action can be engaged in Krishna consciousness. It is beyond contamination by sinful reactions, exactly as the lotus leaf, though remaining in the water, is not wet. The Lord also says in the Gita, Mai Sharvani Karmani Shanyasya, resign all works unto me, Krishna. The conclusion is that a person without Krishna consciousness acts according to the concept of the material body and senses, but a person in Krishna consciousness acts according to the knowledge that the body is the property of Krishna and should therefore be engaged in the service of Krishna. Perfectly explaining, right, the difference between doing the same thing with the consciousness of its mind and the consciousness that it's Krishna's, and we should be giving it to Krishna and for Krishna's glory. Text 11. Kayena manasya buddhya kevayala indriya lapi yogina karamas kurvanti sangam tayaktvatma sudade. Kayena with the body, manasya with the mind, buddhya with the intelligence, kevalai purified, indriyai with the senses, api even with, yoganaha the Krishna conscious persons, karma actions, kurvanti they act, sangam attachment, tyaktva giving up, atma self, shuddhaye for the purpose of purification. The yogis, abandoning attachment, act with body, mind, intelligence, and even the senses only for the purpose of purification. So to be a real yogi is to be yoga, to be connected in devotional service with Krishna, and utilizing everything that we have, whether our body, our mind, our intelligence, the senses. We have to act. So we really have only two options. We're either going to act under Maya Devi's jurisdiction, or we're going to act under Krishna's jurisdiction. Which is going to be, you can't have both, if you don't, you're like, I don't want to be in Krishna's and I don't want to be in Maya's, I just want to be in my own. Well, then you're in Maya. By acting in Krishna consciousness for the satisfaction of the senses of Krishna, any action, whether of the body, mind, intelligence, or even the senses, is purified of material contamination. There are no material reactions resulting from the activities of a Krishna conscious person. So we were saying that karma is an activity, right? And we receive certain, there are different subdivisions of karma, and depending on what we're doing, if it's a regulative principle or if it's just grossly sinful activity, we are engaging in activities, we are accumulating, we are experiencing karmic reactions while simultaneously accumulating new karmic reaction. But this idea of doing Krishna consciousness, acting in the service of Krishna, does not accumulate new karma. It actually burns off old karma. Therefore, purified activities, which are generally called, there are no material reactions resulting from the activities of a Krishna conscious person. Therefore, purified activities, which are generally called sadachara, can be easily performed by acting in Krishna consciousness. Sri Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu describes this as follows. Iha yasya hare dasya karmana manasya gila nikil lashapi avashtastu Jivan Mukta Sayuchate, a person acting in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, in the service of Krishna, with his body, mind, intelligence, and words, is a liberated person even within the material world. Although he may be engaged in so many so-called material activities, he has no false ego, nor does he believe that he is this material body, nor does he possess the body. He knows that he is not this body, and that this body does not belong to him. He himself belongs to Krishna, and the body too belongs to Krishna. When he applies everything produced of the body, mind, intelligence, words, life, wealth, etc., whatever he may have within his possession to Krishna's service, he is at once dovetailed with Krishna. He is one with Krishna and is devoid of the false ego that leads one to believe that he is the body, etc. This is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Bhaktivedanta, nobody could say it clearer than that. Text 12. Yukta karma phalam tayaktva shantim apnoti nashti kim ayuktaha kamma karena phale shakto nibadyate. Yukta, one who is engaged in devotional service. Karma phalam, the results of all activities. Tyaktva, giving up. Shantim, perfect peace. Apnoti, achieves. Nashtit kim, unflinching. Ayukta, one who is not in Krishna consciousness. Kama karena, for enjoying the result of work. Phale, in the result. Shaktaha, attached. Nibadyate becomes entangled. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the results of all activities to me, whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. So we see the two different things. So earlier on in the Bhagavad Gita, was the person who was saying a person without a steady mind cannot have peace, and how can there be any happiness without peace? Well, here we see the steadily devoted soul that's devoting his life to the service of Krishna is happy and peaceful, and those who don't are not. they're entangled in the material world. Purport: the difference between a person in Krishna consciousness and a person in bodily consciousness is that the former is attached to Krishna, whereas the latter is attached to the results of his activities. The person who is attached to Krishna and works for him only is certainly a liberated person, and he is not anxious for fruitive rewards. In the Bhagavatam, the cause of anxiety over the result of an activity is explained as being due to one's functioning in the conception of duality, that is, without knowledge of the absolute truth. Krishna is the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead. In Krishna consciousness, there is no duality. All that exists is a product of Krishna's energy, and Krishna is all good. Therefore, activities in Krishna consciousness are on the absolute plane. They are transcendental and have no material effect, which is why whether it's chanting Krishna's names or doing japa, or we're acting on a transcendental plane, service to Krishna, offering prasadam to people. This is a completely different, hearing the names, the chanting of Krishna's names is purifying the world. One is therefore filled with peace in Krishna consciousness. One who is, however, entangled in profit calculation for sense gratification cannot have that peace. That is the secret of Krishna consciousness. Realization that there is no existence besides Krishna is the platform of peace and fearlessness. So we're fearless in our service because we are completely happy and have that faith. So continuing, text 13. Sarva kamani manasa sanya yashte shukyam vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvana karayan sarva all karmani activities, manasa by the mind, sanyasya giving up, aste remains, shukam in happiness, vashi one who is controlled, navadvare in the place where there are 9 gates, pure in the city, dehi the embodied soul, na never, eva certainly, kurvan doing anything, na not, karayan causing to be done. Translation: when the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all action, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, and neither working nor causing work to be done. So this is the reference of the 9 gates. The city of 9 gates is the body, of course, the eyes, the nose, nostrils, the mouth, the ears, the genitals, the anus. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That was it. The eyes, the ears, the nose, the mouth, the genitals, the anus. So different gates, right? The life air comes through and in and out. So basically saying that you can live in the field of activity. This kshetra, right? It's a field of activity, which we'll get to. We'll talk more about in a later chapter. But this is not also known as the city of 9 gates, the material body. A living entity can be in the material body and live peacefully and happily, realizing that he can use what he has, and when it's time to let the body go, he lets the body go. The embodied soul lives in the city of 9 gates. The activities of the body, or the figurative city of body, are conducted automatically by the particular modes of nature. The soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond these conditions if he so desires. Owing only to forgetfulness of his superior nature, he identifies with the material body and therefore suffers. By Krishna consciousness, he can revive his real position and thus come out of his embodiment. Therefore, when he takes to Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes completely aloof from bodily activities. In such a controlled life in which his deliberations are changed, he lives happily within the city of 9 gates. The 9 gates are described as follows. Nava dvare pure dehi hamso lela yate bahi vashi sharvasya lokasya stavarasya charasya cha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within the body of the living entity, is the controller of all living entities all over the universe. The body consists of 9 gates: 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, 1 mouth, the anus, and the genital. The living entity in this conditioned stage identifies himself with the body, but when he identifies himself with the Lord within himself, he becomes just as free as the Lord, even while in the body. Svetasvatara Upanishad 3:18. Therefore, a Krishna conscious person is free from both the outer and inner activities of the material body. Text 14. Na kratvalam na karmani lokashya srijati prabhu na karma vala samyogam svabhavas tu parvatate na never kartvam proprietorship na nor karmani activities lokashya of the people srijati creates prabhu the master of the city of the body, na nor karma phala results of activities, shamyogam connection, swabhaya modes of material nature, tu but pravartate acts. Translation, text 14. The embodied spirit, we have the word again, the embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All of this is enacted by the modes of material nature. It's very fantastic, phantasmagoria, amazing that the living entity does not create activities. He does not induce people to act. He does not create fruits of action. All this is done by the modes of material nature, interacting with in this material energy, interacting with the modes of material nature, acting according to the desires, the misguided desires of the living entity. The living entity, as will be explained in the 7th chapter, is one in nature with the Supreme Lord, distinguished from matter, one which is another nature called inferior of the Lord. Somehow the superior nature, the living entity, has been in contact with material nature since time immemorial. The temporary body or material dwelling place which he obtains is the cause of varieties of activities and the resultant reactions. So we have this karmic reaction going on constantly, and we're just cruising through the samsara. Birth, death, old age, birth, death, old age, acting, reacting. Living in such a conditional atmosphere, one suffers the results of the activities of the body by identifying himself in ignorance with the body. It is ignorance acquired from time immemorial that is the cause of bodily suffering and distress. This is the truth hit hard. It is the ignorance acquired from time immemorial that is the cause of bodily suffering and distress. We are suffering. We want to get out of suffering. Then we should take to Krishna consciousness. We should come out of the ignorance. We should be taken out of the cave by the spiritual master. We should follow him out of the cave that we are lost in, to show us the way out of this distress and suffering. We don't just stay in here and walk around in the cave longer. No, I think I know the way. I think it's this way, that way. As soon as the living entity becomes aloof from the activities of the body, he becomes free from the reactions as well. As long as he is in the city of the body, he appears to be the master of it, but actually he is neither its proprietor nor controller of its actions and reactions. We have very little control over our body. You know, we can be in a situation and think that we're like the head CEO of a company, and you know, if we ate something bad for lunch and suddenly we have just like an acute case of diarrhea, we have no choice but to try to find the nearest bathroom and leave that. we don't have that power to be like, okay, I want the diarrhea to stop. No, we don't have it. We have very little control. We don't have any control over the weather. We don't have the control of getting sick. I mean, we can do certain things to our body to try to keep that off. We're constantly in situations where maybe we crash a car, somebody hits us, somebody murders us. there are things going on all the time. People have very little control over what's going on in the material world, in their own body. They think they're the master of it, but they don't know what reactions are around the corner. They don't. They have been laying those bricks from time immemorial, and they are getting the reactions as it goes along. He is simply in the midst of the material ocean, struggling for existence. I would just be dropped in. I mean, I was looking at a map today in a classroom, and there's more water on the planet Earth than there is land. And I look at some of these oceans, and they are just so vast. They are so vast, and I always just thinking like, okay, remembering trips that I would take from Central to Northern California to go camping, and it took 6 hours, and I think, God, that was so far. Or go to LA or something. It's so far, but like to go across the ocean and imagine that you're dropped in the middle of just nothing but water all around you, knowing that there's not really any land nearby. And just like you could be the greatest swimmer, but you have no control over how quickly you're going to die out there. And there have been people who have fallen off the boat and whatever. The waves of the ocean are tossing him, and he has no control over them. It's a perfect analogy of material life. So we think we're really, everything is great when the sky is sunny. When our health is good, and maybe we have good karma coming back to us. We're making money, and we think, oh yeah, I'm the guy. I got all the girls. I got the nice car and the Porsche. I got the hot job, but woo, the stock market crashes. I lose my job. I have to sell my car. My girlfriend doesn't want to the girls don't come around anymore, or I get fat. Just like then life is just like, oh, or we get cancer. The waves of the ocean are tossing him. We're getting tossed around. He has no control over them. The best solution is to get out of the water by transcendental Krishna consciousness. We take hold of Krishna's feet, even in the hardest times. That alone will save him from all turmoil. And I think we're probably going to end it there. Next one is a little bit long purport. So, very tasty and wonderful texts from this Bhagavad Gita, as it is Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. We will begin again next time with text 15. Thank you very much. Namaste.